Hello, kind and dear people. Let us get acquainted with a little known case of a meeting between a human and extraterrestrial beings. They lifted me together with the bed. A UFO takes off from a factory in Buhovo, a village near the city of Sofia, the capital of Bulgaria, Europe. A humanoid blows out a bus tire. It was quite difficult to convince Georgi Todorov to talk about his encounter with extraterrestrials in 1992. He does not like to speak about it at all. However, to my delight, he shared what happened. I was invited into his cozy home in the town of Buhovo. At the doorstep, we were greeted by the living Hemingway, a middle-aged man with a graying beard and a gaze that captivates, strong, deep, and wise, and at the same time childishly curious and cheerful. Georgi worked for many years as a driver of a taxi, of an Icarus, in public transport, later for the Russian church, and he also drove important figures. Now he is retired and guards a temple in the capital. He strongly believes in God, and that God's mercy has saved him more than once. When he was bitten by a snake in Sozopol, and when a car hit his taxi at over 120 km/h, he and his passenger remained unharmed, and the collision also saved other people at a pedestrian crossing toward which the car had been heading. In one photograph, behind Georgi, the silhouette of an angel appeared. The image astonished a guest of his from Russia so much that he begged Georgi to give it to him to show in a church in Moscow. The deep faith, honor, and dignity with which Georgi walks his life path have ignited sparks in his eyes and shaped his noble posture, worthy of admiration. A few years ago, Prime Minister Boyko Borisov even tried to kiss his hand in front of the Russian church, mistaking him for a priest. I make this digression because Georgi agreed to speak, but not to be photographed face on, and also because his survival after what happened, which we will now tell, may also be connected to God's will. As our photographer likes to say, only God knows, UFO and Buhovo. But let us return to 1992. The day is sometime in September, frosty and cold. At that time, Georgi is a driver of an Icarus in public transport. He works a lot to earn money for the third child his wife is expecting. That day he has a split schedule so he can change his tires. He starts work early in the morning, first bus on line No. 17. It passes by the Bochenets district through Chelopachin and goes to Kremakovtsi. Along with him in the bus is his colleague Svetlio, who had been on the night shift and lived at the end of the Seslavsy neighborhood near the town of Buhovo in the Kremakovtsi district. At Perdop Square, Sohata Rika, where buses turn around, an officer boards who often travels to the unit in Buhovo. Svetlio enters the cabin with Georgi, and the officer sits in the front seat on the right. There are no other passengers. They are almost at the turnoff for Buhovo, have passed the prison stop. It is around 5:50 am, and suddenly before their eyes, about a kilometer up the slope, a huge flying saucer rises. I am not a fantasist. I don't read science fiction, and I didn't have time for it in public transport, especially when you drive an average of 10 hours a day. I don't drink alcohol, maybe 20-30 grams for company, but not when I'm working. We were checked every morning. No alcohol, no fantasy, no inventions, says our interlocutor and continues excitedly. And this flying saucer flashes, shining brightly toward us. I saw it as if it was coming out from somewhere. There above Buhovo. Georgi immediately turns to the officer. Look! He stands up from his seat and freezes. The flying saucer also stops for a moment in the sky, without reacting. Then it disappears very quickly. Svetlio, what did you see? Georgi asks his companion. Well, something white, round and white. Georgi opens the door at the stop near Buhovo and Sislavci, and Svetlio gets off. The bus continues toward the town, but what happened does not leave Georgi in peace. Sir, what did you see? He asks the officer. A flying saucer. That's what I saw too. At what moment did you see it? Well, when you shouted, it was just sitting up there and suddenly disappeared. And you? I saw it as it was taking off. I saw its edges, the dome underneath, its whole glow. In Buhovo, the officer gets off and Georgi, Alice, never sees him again. I really wanted to meet him afterward, to ask him if something happened to him after he saw the UFO, whether he coped psychologically. I would be glad if he sees the article in Magazine 8 and decides to contact us. The flying saucer, according to Georgi's description, was about 100 square meters in diameter. No windows were visible, or at least he did not see any in the short time before it vanished. It shone brightly. Georgi agreed to be photographed, but without showing his face. After the incident, Georgi goes to the garage to change the Icarus tires with new ones. It is afternoon. He has to carry passengers on line 117. It passes through Gorny and Dolny Bogrov and again leads to the mysterious town named after a nocturnal bird. Right there, at the last stop in Buhovo, several people board. One of them is of medium height, with a small bag in his hand. He goes up to Georgi and asks to sit with him in the cabin. I rarely let people in, only if someone has no ticket and is in trouble. But I look at him, intelligent, decently dressed, a normal person, only he was lemon yellow, pale like a traveler, but alive, vital. And I let him go ahead. Sit. The pale man begins questioning him. Do you often travel to this place? No, I'm on other lines, in Sofia, but when I'm on reserve, I cover this area. Now they assign me so I can change my tires. Why are you asking? Here, in time, a large center for treatment will be established, including for oncological diseases. I have a practice here. What kind of practice? Dental, medical. People come and leave satisfied. But you can't say people are satisfied. People should say that Georgi interrupts him. And exactly then, out of nowhere, he says, "Now one of your tires on the middle axle will blow." What are you talking about? As Georgi says, what are you talking about? Bam! The whole bus shakes. People start shouting, including a pregnant woman. Georgi stops, goes to check. The tire on the middle axle is blown. Brand new, installed an hour and a half earlier. I took a deep breath, stopped a car, put the pregnant woman in it, and got the people off to wait for the next bus. But the man with the bag remains, asking to travel with him to the garage in Malashevtsy. And again he starts talking to him, this time about very personal things. Your wife had cancer surgery. You have a son and a daughter. You are expecting a third child. The blood rushed to my head. The driver recalls, I broke into a sweat, my vision blurred. I stopped and shouted at him, listen, get off and leave the bus. He looked at me and said, calm down. I'm getting off and leaving. I wish you all the best. I opened the door. He got off politely. Georgie never sees him again. Until you called me. Until that moment. I hadn't even considered that this humanoid, earthly or extraterrestrial, I don't know, might be connected to the flying saucer and to what happened afterward. THEEMPIRESTRIES BUSEK, Georgie finishes work at 10 p.m., and the next day he is scheduled for a shift at 5:40 a.m. He does not refuse to accumulate more hours. He returns to the apartment in the Tolstoy district, where his family lives at the time, eats quickly, and goes to bed. His wife, Nadia, is with the children in the next room, working on wood carving. Probably because of the noise, Georgie cannot fall asleep, so he decides to move to the children's room. I lie down on the bed next to the wall, facing the large window. I had just dozed off, and suddenly something started lifting me together with the bed. Horizontally, maybe about 40 cm above the ground. I could neither shout nor get up. It began to choke me, to squeeze me from inside. At the same time, Nadia hears a strange noise from the room and goes to see what is happening. Seconds before she opens the door, the bed is on the ground, and Georgie manages to say, "What's going on? Are you shaking the bed?" Leave the door open. Our protagonist refuses to dwell too much on what happened. The dominant thought is that at 4:30 a.m., he has to get up and will be behind the wheel all day. But after 5 minutes, the incident repeats. The second time they lifted me, and it was as if they wanted to throw me out the window with the bed. I was in the air with my feet toward the window. I couldn't move. I had no strength. I wanted to shout for help but couldn't. I don't know what the struggle was, what exactly happened, but at one moment the bed hit the wall and shook. I took a breath and got up. Nadia confirmed she heard the noise, but again saw nothing. This time Georgie refuses to lie down. He takes a hot shower. Nadia makes him strong coffee, and together they wait until it is time for him to go to work. It never happened again. Thank God, says Georgie, firmly convinced that it was God who saved him once again, even in this unequal battle. Paralyzed and mute, the only thing he could do in the air was pray, Asayucr far uranaim, to see for ourselves where our new friend encountered the UFO. We head to Buhovo. The town is located 25 km northeast of the capital's center, in the Kremakovci district. To be honest, it looks more like a small neighborhood of Sofia, although it has been a town since 1974. Yet it has a rich history dating back to prehistoric times. In the 3rd century, the settlement became part of Byzantium, and the locals built a huge basilica, now in the yard of the Buhovo monastery. The place is clearly special, and our ancestors knew it, as 3 of the 14 monasteries of the Sofia Holy Mountain are located in this area, an important spiritual center in the Middle Ages, the Buhovo Monastery, Sestin, Archangel Michael, the St. Nicholas of Myra Monastery in Seslavci, and the Buhovo Monastery, St. Mary Magdalene. The special energy likely comes from the fact that there is uranium in the mountain near Buhovo. In 1938, with German assistance, the deposit was developed but closed in 1939. After World War II, the USSR took control of the reserves. A Soviet Bulgarian mining company operated until 1956, when the Rare Metals Company was established. As it was a strategic resource, uranium activity was shrouded in secrecy until 1989. On August 20, 1992, by decree of the Council of Ministers, the company's operations were halted. In September, the 3 men saw the flying object. Here we are, at the turnoff for Buhovo, exactly where 22 years ago Georgi saw the glowing disc from bus No. 17. We pull over, take photos, and the guide in our incredible story suggests we go by car to the exact place from which the UFO took off, to see what is there. Did you guess already? The closed uranium processing plant. This was confirmed by 2 people, the guard at the site and a former military man from Buhovo. The latter was not very talkative, but he did mention something interesting. Some time ago, he himself had read in a newspaper an account by an elderly man who had also seen a large glowing saucer over Buhovo in the 1960s. Unfortunately, he did not keep the article, nor did he remember where it was published. But the story with the nocturnal birds does not end here.